Victoria Yates, welcome to the Compare To Show.
Thanks so much, Heather, for having me.
Well, this month and really next month too, I am having interviews on the show that will connect to the content in my new 40-day body image workbook. And when I talked to Victoria about like, hey, like how can you come on the show and maybe add like the expert perspective around some of the concepts in there, there was one topic that you jumped all over. And so I am
Oh, yeah.
excited that we're going to go there today. But what happened, Victoria, this is so cool. I got a message on the Facebook group that we run for this show. It's called Body Image Help for Christian Women. And someone had started reading the book. And I can't remember how far they got, maybe like day 11 or 12. And they were like, hey, I really like the book, but I have this health issue and this health issue and this health issue. And I'm generalizing to protect their anonymity. And I'm a little worried that you're going to tell me that I can't do anything to help any of these health issues. And at first I was kind of like, well, that's kind of silly, right? Like, why would you jump there? But then as I thought about it, and this is, a chapter in my book, like we are so good at black and white thinking. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, if you're going to tell me not to diet, then what you're really telling me is I should sit on the couch and eat Cheetos and never move. And it's like, yeah, no, that's not it. And so I'm glad you're here today to kind of help flesh out like there are I hate the word healthy, right? Because healthy has been so abused. And I love like your tagline on your podcast is redefining that word. There are ways that we can pursue health goals that don't look like what most of the Instagram or YouTube influencers are telling us health goals have to look like. So that's where we're going today. Victoria, as we get started, will you just share your story? Like, how did you end up in this space doing this kind of thing?
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Victoria Yates, and I am a registered nurse and health coach and certified intuitive eating counselor. And I love helping women to become their healthiest selves inside and out through healing their relationship with food, getting away from dieting, learning to eat intuitively, and really just like we were talking about today, really redefine what healthy really means for them. A lot of my clients come to me and they, like we're talking about today, they have health goals, and also they've been on diets for a lot of them for decades, and they are just done with it. They're tired, and but they also want to feel better. And so I really help them navigate. Okay, we can work towards you feeling your best and you living a healthy life. And it doesn't have to be through dieting and restricting food and just feeling like you have to put your life on pause. And so, yeah, I got into this work because of my own, of course, my own struggles. I had an eating disorder for about 8 to 10 years of my life. It kind of gets a little murky as I started to do some of that inner work of healing, but I would say it was a good portion of my life. And I remember, so eating disorders and just like unhealthy relationship with food and body image issues runs in my family like it does for a lot of women. My grandmother dieted, my mom dieted. That was just normal. It was just like what we as women do, right? And so when I was a teenager, of course, like body change started and all that normal stuff. But that was also the time where I started to really want to be healthy and went to Google, of course, and blogs and all the things. And I learned everything that I could possibly know about how to be healthy from the internet. And so, of course, that was like seeped in diet culture. And I started obsessively counting calories and exercising obsessively and eliminating foods and really just becoming obsessed with like healthy eating. And so what was really tricky for me was I thought all that time I was just like doing the right thing, quote unquote, and didn't realize it at the time, but totally had an eating disorder. And so that is really, what where my passion has come from, is because I think that's what a lot of people relate with. They, dieting is kind of made out to be this like really healthy thing that we just should do to be healthy. And it's, there's a lot we could talk about with that, but it's actually not healthy, and in a lot of ways, physically and mentally and emotionally. And I think too, like on a spiritual side, all that while food and my body and exercise really became this idol for me. Um, I was going through a lot of really hard things at that time in my family. And it was like controlling food and controlling my body and exercise that was like what I was turning to, versus turning to the Lord to be my comfort and that safety for me. So it's just like, that's kind of like always been my story, is like, I try to do it my own. And then God's like, no, like you need to rely on me. And so, I dealt with that. And, it was really not until, I actually was listening to a podcast, which is why I love that we're talking about this on a podcast. I was listening to a podcast and I remembered someone talking about intuitive eating, and I was like, whoa, what is this? And, I started to like hear people talk about healing your relationship with food. You don't have to diet. You can just listen to your body. And I was like, what? And I started to kind of like really, I loved that idea. But the more that I learned about it, and I know that this is not the case for everybody, but I think it has to do with just like my, my schooling, my understanding of the human body. Intuitive eating made so much sense with our bodies and our biology, how our bodies were designed. It made so much sense that dieting felt really hard and like all consuming. And I like to describe it as it's like swimming upstream. It's like you're just so hard. It made so much sense just with like how our bodies are. And so that was the moment where I was like, I am going all in, learning what this whole intuitive eating thing is, diving all in on, okay, I think I can trust my body, and starting to practice eating intuitively. And so then I knew I had to help other people with this too, because this, I mean, like I shared in my story, like I thought that I was being healthy. And I think a lot of people, they don't know that their relationship with food is necessarily an issue until they start to see. They don't know what diet culture is, and they don't know that like they can listen to their bodies. They don't have to count every calorie and track every macro. So that's a little bit of my story and how I got to where I am today.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to ask you this in the form of a question so you can help us all be clear. Like you didn't just wake up one morning and you're like, oh, I'm going to do intuitive eating now. This is perfect. Right?
No, not at all. Yeah.
It's a
No, not
process,
at all.
isn't it?
Yeah. It's a process. It's like, I mean, so much of it is, as you know, like an inward process. Like I talked about, like you have to build up that trust with your body and with yourself around food, because diet culture tells you the exact opposite. You can't trust your body. You can't listen to your body. So it's this process of undoing everything that you've learned and known to be true in the past, and then relearning how to just like eat normally.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the way that I like to put it, like when it comes to intuitive eating, it's like, we were born intuitive eaters. You look at a newborn baby, they come out of their mom and they cry when they're hungry. They stop and pull away when they're full. Like that is how we were born. That's how God made us. And just like a muscle though, that, the less you use it, it's going to get weak. It's not going to work right. It's not going to want to work. We have to rebuild that strength and that muscle of eating intuitively. And so that is a lot of the work that I help my clients with, is rebuilding that skill.
Yeah. Because it feels like, I mean, just from my experience, like you said, like because of your knowledge of the human body, that intuitive eating kind of just like made sense. But
Yeah.
to me, it was like dieting was so much easier, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
just tell me what to eat. Tell me what is
Yeah.
good. Tell me what is bad. Like, tell me what will make me skinny. And I want to eat that. And then, like I talk about in the book, right? Like that journey of just tell me what to eat took me from 1992 in college ordering plain bagels and spraying chemicals on my food instead of using real butter because fat was going to make us all fat, to like 2012, where I've got a stick of butter and a handful of nuts and like a wad of coconut oil. And somehow I'm supposed to put all those things together to make a fat bomb because fat was suddenly going to make me skinny, right? It's like that has been a wild ride in and of itself. And yet, I think a lot of people, even hearing that and like laughing along to like, oh, yeah, I've done that too. There's this fear of, well, I put it this way in the book, like it's a fear of living in the gray, right? Like it's the black or the white. Those easy to see, comfortable. I know which side I'm on, like to, make it even a level deeper spiritually. Like I know whether or not I'm righteous, right? If I'm wholly following the rules of my diet culture, but living in the messiness of, oh, it might not be the same day to day. And some days my relationship with food might feel awkward, and other days it might feel really good. And then some days it might be like, whoa, like what's going on here? Like, Victoria, speak to that. Like how do we live in between the black and white, or live in the grace is the way I phrased it in the book.
Yeah. Well, I think it's first of all helpful to know why we like to be black and white thinkers. And it's just, I mean, that is like when we think about our psychology and the way our brains work, our brains are always looking for like, what is the most efficient way to think about something? And the most efficient way to think about something is black or white. And so that's why we're drawn to that. Okay. It's either yes or no. And I so relate with you too, of like, I was a rule follower and I still kind of am. Like, that's like how I was raised, like perfect kid who just follows all the rules. And I like that. And so that part of dieting was like so attractive. But as you already alluded to, like our bodies are different every single day. Our needs are different every single day. Like the energy that we expend, especially as women, is just so different on a day-to-day basis. And so our bodies, like we can't just, okay, check, I eat this many calories at breakfast and this many calories at lunch and this many at dinner. And then that's that. And so I think, yeah, going back to, I think it's helpful to see, okay, this is why I'm an all or nothing thinker. It's just the way that my brain likes to function, but there are very few things in the world that it's just clear, like all or nothing. And food is one of those areas. So I think that is helpful to just kind of look at as a starting point. And then, yeah, understanding that, yeah, your body is going to be different every single day. And so living in the gray, I guess for me, what that looks like is practicing intuitive eating. The way that we do that is we have to have that trust with ourselves and that trust with our bodies to know. And I think that this is like a twofold thing. We can learn like, okay, this is what hunger feels like. This is what most people know what late hunger feels like, but a lot of people don't realize that your body gives you signs of hunger even before you're like hangry and ravenously hungry and then like binging your pantry because that's the normal response to being so hungry. And then this is what fullness feels like, and having safety around, like, this is where so much of your relationship with food comes into play, like that safety of, okay, I can stop eating right now. And I know that I'm going to be able to eat later if I get hungry again. So there's that piece of it. But then there's also, I think, what keeps people from really being able to eat and like live in that grace, like you talk about, is they have what feels like real evidence that they can't just listen to their body, that they can't just like go through their day eating when they're hungry, stopping when they're full, not having these food rules, not counting calories, not tracking macros, because when they haven't done that, then they swing to the other extreme, right? When they come off of the diet or they're not like following that diet or following and tracking every little thing, they find themselves overeating, binging their pantry, only wanting to eat donuts and pizza. And so that creates this evidence in their brain that says, oh, yeah, when I'm not dieting, that's the result. So I think that it's like, if we can maybe we can like, if I could speak to that for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
That kind of pendulum is a normal response to dieting. And so like when you are dieting, when you are restricting food, when you are even just like, maybe it's not even, this is something people don't always understand, but even if you are like getting quote enough calories in a day, even that like mental restriction of I can't have this can lead to the natural response is to want to overeat and eat all the foods that you couldn't have when you were dieting. But that evidence, like that happening feels very real, like very real evidence. Oh, I can't listen to my body. But what I want people to hear is like, that is just the response to dieting. And so the way to get away from that like pendulum kind of effect is to go to the source and really work on, first of all, not dieting, working on like eating enough for your body's physical needs, and then working on your relationship with food and that psychological mindset piece. So yeah, that was a lot.
No, that was great. Well, and I heard you say like trusting your body, right?
Mhm.
And that I think can sound really like squirrely if you've been dieting a lot.
Totally.
Right? Like, oh, well, I don't know about that because of what you
Yeah.
just said, because of what you just explained, right? Like it feels like I can't trust my body because every time I've tried to trust my body it turns into I'm off the diet wagon binge until I go back on the diet wagon. And that's, I think, how many, many, many women live their entire lives. I mean, that was me for decades. That was my mom. That was grandma.
Mhm.
That was aunts. Like I just saw it everywhere. But
Mhm.
like with that trust, what I'm thinking, this kind of goes back to that word grace that I substituted for the word gray, but it's like giving yourself grace
Mhm.
with food. And I think to tie this kind of back to where we were going to go today, like when you have health goals, I feel like diet culture's message is if you do all these things perfectly, A, B, C, D, check, 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 and boom, health goals met, right? It's like quid pro quo, like do this, get this. And, I'll tell you honestly. So, like, I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism and then ended up being Hashimoto's at age 40. And so for the next couple of years, and I already kind of worked through body image stuff, but I hadn't touched food. Like God was very gracious with me. He didn't make me deal with my food issues for a couple of years. And I'm Googling, right? Google is our favorite doctor. Googling
Mhm.
like, how to eat for a hypothyroid, how to cure Hashimoto's with food. And then I suddenly find myself on all the elimination diets. Right. And so I'm following all these elimination diets and struggling because although I didn't know it at the time, boy, elimination diets are super fun if you've had an eating disorder because it's like, yeah, I can't eat all these
Permission.
different things. I have permission to
Yeah.
restrict. Woohoo, party. Like I'll get like
Mhm.
I get a pass on any kind of eating disorder behavior because I have to do this because of my health issue. And I really wish I had known, and this is where I'm kind of hoping like you'll maybe fill in the blanks. I wish I had known a better way to do that, right? Because I know there's nothing wrong with like some people just can't tolerate gluten, right? So to tell them being an intuitive eating eater for you means you have to eat bread, like that would be stupid. Like that's not what anyone's saying with intuitive eating. But how do you take, because there is some wisdom out there, how do you
Mhm.
take some of the wisdom that's out there about like, okay, if you want, if you have this health goal, lower your blood sugar or lower your blood pressure, but balance your blood sugar, I guess could be in there too, right? Or tackling, thyroid issues or any like if you've got a health goal, a health thing going on, how do you take all this information and pursue it in a healthy, balanced, not I got to get on the next plan and I'm going to go on the wagon, off the wagon. How do we do that, Victoria?
Yeah, I think first of all, making sure you have like credible information is really important. That's tough. That is
You mean not Dr.
hard.
Google?
Not Dr. Google. And
He's well
it's,
known.
oh yes, believe me. But I think that that's hard, because even like when I think about like some of the like functional medicine doctors, and like there's a lot of diet culture, wellness culture in there too, that's really tricky to navigate. What I will just say is, like, as like blanket kind of thoughts, advice, is that rarely do you have to be on, like, for that kind of thing, it's like rarely do you have to be on a really extreme food protocol for very long. So if it's like a I'm on this for years kind of thing, like there might be some things that you realize, like, I don't feel well when I'm like eating this way, and I've discovered that, but like rarely should it be this like extreme restrictive diet for a really long time. So I think understanding that. But like I had a client who also had some thyroid issues and just like some autoimmune kind of things, and she noticed that, yeah, when she ate certain foods, I think gluten was one of those, she noticed she did not feel good. And what we really worked on, we can still work on a lot of the same principles of intuitive eating, making peace with food, and permission. What we worked on a lot for her was like, you can, and I think this is really helpful for people who do have food issues, you can eat the bread. Like there's permission there. You can eat that. And knowing, like, I also teach my clients to, I call it future mindfulness. So we oftentimes think about mindfulness with eating, like eating in the present, and I'm like noticing every bite, but I also teach them it's future mindfulness. So you're thinking about, okay, how am I going to feel after this? And using that information to just help you decide and make an intentional decision around what you are going to eat. And but what I love about that is you're giving yourself that permission, and it's this empowered decision. That's the difference I find between like a diety restrictive mind and like a mindset around food and health and any kind of like health practice or whatnot, is it's coming from this intentional, empowered place where you know your body, you trust your body, you listen to your body, you have a good relationship with your body, and that discerns what kinds of things you're going to do and eat. It comes from this freeing place versus a restrictive place. So I don't know if that helps, but that's usually, what I think about. I think that's a really helpful way for people to approach any kind of health concern is, okay, we're still going to practice that permission, a calm relationship with food, you listening to your body. And that's what's going to determine what we do versus just follow this XYZ. This is the plan.
And again, I'm going to take us, I hear grace in that, right?
Absolutely.
Because as opposed to I'm on a plan, oops, I messed up. And it's not really oops. It's, oh, I messed up. I'm horrible. Shame, 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 blame, like, oh, I did it wrong. I might as well, blow the whole day and I'll start the plan again Monday, right? Like instead of all that, I think when you have this grace-based approach, it's like, ooh, I ate that thing. Ooh, I don't feel good. Oh, well, like now I've learned something. I've learned that eating that thing kind of makes me not feel good. Maybe I'll remember that next time, or maybe I'll be somewhere and I'll forget it and I'll do it again. But either way, it's okay because I'm human and this is what humans do. And there's
Yes.
grace for that. I don't have to
Yes.
shame and blame myself around that. So
Yes. Sometimes something that I have my clients want to work on all the time, and I think this is helpful, is consistency. And I think that, consistency in our lives is like a really helpful tool, but this is the thing that I think messes with people. And I love that you talk about grace, because the way we oftentimes think about consistency is it equals perfection. Okay. Consistency means I have to never have a night where I overeat, or never have dessert, or never have that bread when I am trying to eat more gluten-free, right? Or I never sleep through my alarm and miss the gym. But the reality is consistency is more about just continuing to show up, giving yourself grace for being just a normal human and a human who is not going to be perfect. And I think, dieting really does a great job of conditioning us to be all or nothing and perfectionists, right? Like I remember the last diet I went on, people will probably hear this and know exactly what I'm talking about, but it was this 30-day diet where, you miss one day or you eat a gram of sugar one day and it's like, nope, you got to start over at day one, right? So it conditions us to be very like all or nothing. I'm either following it perfectly or I'm off the wagon and I've got to start over. But then what's the point? Because I know that I'm going to fail again. And then you feel discouraged and it's just that cycle.
Yeah. And we do that with exercise too, I think. At least like I do. Like I'm
Absolutely.
like, ooh, I'm going to do this. And I like print out the little thing and it's like a check mark for every day. And I'm like, ooh, I'm going to check it off every day. And then I miss like 2 days in a row. And it really takes like everything within me, the Holy Spirit too, probably, to be like, okay, it doesn't matter that you didn't check 2 days. You can do this whenever you want. Just because those assignments are on the calendar, like doesn't mean that like it's over. And but it is hard. And even like I've shared this before on the show, like thinking, oh, well, I don't have 35 minutes to exercise today. I only have 15 minutes. And I think before in my black and white thinking, it would have been like, well, I can't do anything. Only 15 minutes. Whereas now I'm like, oh, 15 minutes. Okay. Well, I can make it around the block twice in 15 minutes, or I can, do a couple reps of these like exercises with free weights for 15 minutes. And I did something, which is better than nothing. Although there are some days when I have to choose to do nothing because I'm just tired and my body's saying rest. And instead of feeling guilt and shame around that, it's like, oh, well, maybe the healthiest thing for me today is to take a nap or just to not do that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. That's where that listening to your body, trusting your body piece comes in. And yeah, last year, actually, I did a little experiment with myself that I thought would be fun. Something that I teach my clients. I teach them this process of working towards their health goals without dieting. And we focus on how they want to feel versus the number on the scale. And, my goal last year that I was experimenting with was I wanted to feel stronger because I'd been like a cardio junkie, like everybody for years and years. And I was like, okay, I'm kind of burnt out from that. I'm like ready to try something different. And so I gave myself this goal of I'm going to do 10 push-ups every day for the year. And here's the thing, I was consistent, but I definitely wasn't perfect. And I definitely missed days. I probably only did the push-ups like maybe a third of the year, a third of the days. But the result at the end of the year was I still like got stronger because I didn't make the one day where I missed it in January already, mean anything about the goal. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's great. Okay. But I think the word goal gets tricky, Victoria, right? Because I think those of us that are like us, goal means, run hard towards that one thing, get it done as soon as possible so I can check it off my list and, laser beam focus. And I think even though I know, oh, like I'm not listening to those influencers anymore, still all that language around goals sounds like pressure and performance expectations and all these things. So when you say the word goal, like, is that what it means or is it a little different?
Yeah, great question. I am trying to like take back that word goal, and especially when it comes to our health. And like I said already, like I think, in one way, focusing on some other things that are less like triggering of our body image or lead us to take really restrictive actions like the scale does, and focusing on a goal for how you want to feel. And then also like, I find that I think it's more like the reason why we have such a like uncomfortable relationship with goals is because of what we make it mean if we don't reach that goal. rather than just like the goal. So I like to tell my clients, like the point of the goal is just to start to see, well, first of all, like what are the things that might help you to feel better and start to take that action. Again, like working on that mindset of consistency, not perfection, and getting away from the all or nothing thinking and really having like a kind, respectful relationship with yourself throughout it. But I also like to tell people like I think when it comes to our health goals, it's important to keep in mind, like this sounds not great, but you're not necessarily going to reach that goal and just be like, check, climbed the mountain and I'm done. And I think that's how a lot of people approach that, but that leads us to burning out and being, taking that really restrictive, like hustly energy as we're working towards that health goal, and it's unsustainable. But if you think about it as like, I'm working towards this goal of feeling stronger, or this goal of feeling healthier in my body, or this body image goal of like feeling more confident, right? Like it's more, I think, about the way that we think about ourselves than it is like the actual thought of like a goal.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think it's like tortoise versus the hare in a
Mhm.
way, right?
Yeah.
But, it's like the tortoise approach isn't very glamorous, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
but yet I think if we all dug deep, there's lots of talk about longevity now. You
Mhm.
want to feel good for your life.
Mhm.
And I think the dieting concept is you go on this plan that doesn't fit your life, although every plan says that it fits your life, but we all know that they don't really fit your life. You're either buying their food or eating their food, or, you're doing something that it wasn't really your life before. It is probably not going to be your life for very, for very long after, or well, won't
Yeah.
take long until that goes back to your regular life. And, and it's just, it's like, but what we really long for is normal. You used that word earlier, right? Like no
Yeah.
one goes on a diet so they can stay on the diet forever. You go on the diet because you hope that your body will get to a certain size so you can just be normal around food. So you can just rest after that. And yet it never happens because that's just not our bodies were created to restrict food and stay there. So yeah, I love all that. Okay, so we've got a different definition of goals now. It's January. What if there's something I want to do this year for my health? Like where do I
Mhm.
start without going on
Yeah.
a plan? How do I begin?
Yeah. So the process I walk my clients through, that again, we're not going to focus on the scale. We're not going to focus on weight for a couple of reasons. And I do want to say that I find for my clients, they oftentimes do want to lose weight. And I want to just normalize that that's okay. It's okay if you have that desire. You're not wrong for having that. Of course you have that, because look at our culture that idealizes like a skinny, thin body. And it's okay that that's there. And what I like to tell my clients is we can hold space for that. If we used an analogy of like a bus, we're going to let that desire to lose weight sit on the back of the bus, and we're going to let this other desire for body, for having a good relationship with your body and a respectful relationship, and relearning how to listen to your body and trust your body, kind of be more driving the bus. So we're going to focus though on how you want to feel versus the number on the scale. The number on the scale, focusing on a weight goal, is going to lead you to, like I already said, take really restrictive and like very unsustainable action, and also just doesn't feel good. It's not often, it can't come from this place of like having a good relationship with yourself if your goal is to lose weight. And so, what we're going to focus on is, what I encourage people to do is pick a goal for how you want to feel and answer that. Like, I want to feel XYZ by the end of this year. And if you're having a hard time with like getting away from the weight goal, another question you can ask is, okay, what do I think that losing weight, how do I think I'm going to feel if I did lose weight? And let's let that be the goal. And then we're going to work backwards and ask yourself, okay, what are the actions that I think will help me to feel this way? If I want to, like I said, a goal for me, and I know a goal for a lot of people, is I want to feel stronger. So what do I want to do that will help me to feel stronger this year? Maybe it's like, I'm going to pick up some weights and do, this weight class, or like do this online routine I found twice a week. Or maybe it's like, I'm going to walk around my block a couple times a week, right? And really getting clear about, okay, what do I want to do? Because I think that it is helpful to, this is another thing that, along with goals, I'm trying to bring back and like take away the diet culture from it, but it is helpful to have a plan. And I think for people who, like me, and probably you too, who like really loved that part of dieting, like I don't think again, it's how we approach the plan. It's the mindset that we have. It's letting go of that all or nothing with it, and the letting go of the perfection with it. But it's helpful to have like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I want to do. But then allowing that flexibility. What I tell my clients is we can create that structure, but also allow for flexibility, allow for life to happen. Something else that I will tell my clients is, okay, we want to actually plan for there to be obstacles. Things are going to come up. You're going to not feel good. You're going to get sick. Your kids are going to get sick. You are going to go on vacation. You are just going to not feel like doing the thing. And that's okay. And so we want to plan for those things to happen, plan for you to be a real human, and not let that mean anything about you, not make it mean that you failed. So that mindset piece around it is so important as well. But that's kind of the process. So set a goal based on how you want to feel, and then come up with, okay, what are the things that I think will help me to get there? And then being kind to yourself along the way, being gentle, giving yourself grace along the way.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think it's probably worth pointing out that if you hear the word plan and you are like automatically triggered, then you need to know that it's time for you to work with someone, right? Don't try to go on another plan by yourself. If you're like, ooh, I know what a plan's going to do for me. Well, then just don't do that. Don't go on another plan if you know what it's going to do. But hear me that it's okay. Like Victoria said, it is okay to have a plan, but we're talking about a grace-based, you know, a different version of a plan than what you've probably been sold or heard before. So, and I love that, Victoria. Thank you so much for sharing that. Can you tell everyone where they can listen to your podcast and connect with you?
Sure. Yeah. So you can connect with me at my website, victoria-yates.com. That's kind of the hub for everything. My podcast is called the Redefining Health Podcast, and I put out an episode about every week. And I'm over on Instagram too, if you would like to come say hi, at nondiet_RN. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Victoria, for being here today.
Thank you so much, Heather. This is great.
And thank you for watching or listening today. I hope something today has helped you stop comparing and start living. Bye-bye.